What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today we got a very special video because for the first time I am going to give you my 2023 Formula One season predictions. I have my Twitch chat here with me as well, and we're going to give you what we think is going to happen this season in Formula One. Preseason testing is going to be very underway by the time this video comes out, and this time, not but a week from now, we're going to be watching in awe and excitement at round one of the 2023 Formula One season gets underway. We're very excited, and let's go ahead and let's get this thing started. Our first prediction for the 2023 season is this. We just had the car liveries go live online for the first time, and so our first prediction is going to be which constructor strips the most paint off of their car by the time the season ends. For me, I think it's going to be none other than Scuderia Ferrari. I think Ferrari this season is in such a precarious position amongst all of the constructors that if they are looking for that one little advantage, that one little thing that might take them over the edge, I do not think that they would be so petty as to not stoop low enough to start stripping paint off of the car and in trying to swing it in some sort of way of introducing more black to the SF23. I think though they would do almost anything if it came down to it down the stretch of the season to give them as much an advantage or whatever it takes to catch up to the rest of the field. So Scuderia Ferrari, I think, will be the one who strips the most paint off of their car in 2023. Okay, our next prediction is going to be the biggest constructors disappointment. And for me, I try to go a little, again, a little out of the box. I think the biggest constructors disappointment is going to be Alpine. Alpine had a pretty solid finish to last season. They finished fourth in the constructors, and now that they've made a change with Fernando Alonso leaving and bringing in the other Frenchman of Pierre Gasly, I think Alpine could be in a very short answer to a short answer to what could definitely be a longer question is I think the apparent feud between Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly could come to a head and cause a lot of problems, as well as I think just all of the question marks surrounding Pierre Gasly is going to be a lot of potential points lost. And so I think there is definitely not impossible to imagine that Alpine takes a step back and we absolutely see a bit of a French implosion, to the delight of our British associates here in Twitch chat. But I think Alpine has a lot of question marks, and I think if anyone was going to take a step back, I think Alpine could be a very high contender to do so. On to the next prediction, and we have most DNFs this season as a whole. For me, I think I took a very safe route, and I think it makes a lot of sense when you consider it'll be his first year in Formula One. It's going to be his first chance to, really get in an F1 car and, for a full season. And so you really don't know what you're going to get out of a driver like this. You really don't know what he's going to be able to do over the long season. You see the moments of brilliance in the younger junior categories, but once you get into the pinnacle of open wheel racing and Formula One, you just never know what's going to happen. And so most DNFs for me, Logan Sargent. I think it just makes the most amount of sense. I mean, of all of the new rookies, I think Logan has the largest gap to make up, and I think he could be pushing a little too hard in a car that I don't think is going to do and give him the performance that he exactly wants. I don't think it's going to be egregious or anything like that, but at the same time, I think when it comes to DNFs, I think Logan Sargent just doesn't have the same pedigree that people like Oscar Piastri and Nick DeVries have. And so I think Logan Sargent is my pick for most DNFs this coming season. Okay, On to the next question, and I think this is going to be probably my most fun category to talk about because I have dropped an absolute hot take for my answer. That question is just simply biggest surprise. What is the biggest surprise we're going to see in the 2023 F1 season? Not specifically anything on track. All right, stay with me here. My biggest surprise of the 2023 F1 calendar is that the Las Vegas Grand Prix is going to be good. That I think is going to be the biggest surprise that we've seen this season. There has been a lot of talk over the off season when they announced the Vegas race that it's going to be bad. I think my biggest surprise is that we are going to get to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and I think it's going to be good. Don't tell me why. Don't ask me to really explain why. I just really get a vibe and a feeling in the universe that by the time November rolls around, the Las Vegas Grand Prix is going to absolutely bang, and I think we're going to be remembering it for years to come, and I cannot wait for that race to come through. All right, sticking on the broader questions, we now move into what we think our biggest, out there prediction is going to be. Not necessarily the biggest surprise, but taking even that other step back, big picture, kind of take a step out of the box. What do we think is going to be the biggest, most out there thing that we're going to see this season? And for me, I've gone with this. Nick DeVries will beat his teammate Yuki Tsunoda in the Drivers' Championship this season. I think Nick is going to step into that car, that AlphaTauri, and I think he's going to do what Pierre couldn't, which is get the most out of that car and at minimum be more consistent than we've seen out of Yuki. I think Yuki is prone to those mistakes that really take him out of contention in race weekends. And so honestly, I don't think it's unrealistic to see a type like Nick DeVries, who spent more than a couple seasons learning from Mercedes, to then jump into the AlphaTauri, and I think he'll step in, and I think he's going to do a lot better than Yuki in a car that I think it's going to be very Alex Albon-esque, where he'll take a car that really isn't that great and potentially try and extract a little bit more out of it than the car probably has any business actually being. So for the next two predictions, the only stipulation is that we cannot say none, and that first question is going to be surprise podium this season. We really didn't see any of this last season, in which the only podium by a non-Red Bull, Mercedes, or Ferrari team was Lando Norris at Imola, I want to say. And so I think a surprise podium, the qualifications for a surprise podium may not necessarily mean what it usually means, but for me, I think one Valtteri Bottas is going to find himself on a podium at some point this year. I know he kind of faded down the stretch last season, but kind of Alfa Romeo did as a whole in terms of their team. But I think we could see one Valtteri Bottas end up on a podium at some point this season, just because he'll find himself in the right place at the right time. And I think it's not out of the realm of possibility, not gonna lie. The next one along the same lines, we didn't see it at all last year, unless you count George Russell's win in Brazil as being a surprise win. What surprise win would be the most surprising going into 2023? For me, I think it wouldn't be as much of a surprise, but I think considering how the 2022 cars performed on track, for my surprise win, I have one young Lando Norris as my pick for a surprise win. He consistently dragged that McLaren consistently into the top 10, finished P7 in the driver standings, and so I think he could find himself to be in one of those positions to put it on the top step of the podium come at some point this year, should the stars align. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it's very likely to happen, but I think if we were to see a surprise win, it could be one young Lando Norris. All right, our next prediction that we're going to make is who if any, is going to lose their race seat at some point this season. And I think everyone online and every prediction I have seen has one name at the top, and I will be no different. I think Checo in the Red Bull has a bit of a target on his back when it comes to his seat in the Red Bull. Now, if he goes through this season, falls back in line, and really embraces his role as the pure unquestioned second driver in the Red Bull, I think he'll be fine. But if he really starts to push a little too hard, I think I could see Red Bull moving him out. They have Daniel Ricciardo in the wings. I don't know if they would necessarily want to put him back in the Red Bull, but I think that threat of Daniel being there is always going to hang over his head. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, the things everyone wants to see this season. We're going to go with our Constructors 4th place finish, otherwise known as the best of the rest. And for this season, I have gone with McLaren. I've gone with McLaren for the pure simple fact is that I think kind of what we were talking about with Lando this past season, always finding himself getting consistent points week in and week out, with their weak link being Daniel Ricciardo in the other car, fighting against Alpine, which was consistently scoring double points with Fernando Alonso. Assuming he finished the race, was usually finishing well into the top 10 and sometimes dragging that Alpine further up into the top 10 than maybe others could, as we saw with Ocon. But when you're fighting a battle for best of the rest, you need a driver pairing that's going to consistently get you points, maybe not always challenge for wins, but at the same time you need them to be there every race. I think there is potential in that McLaren outfit this season, with Lando Norris back again and the young, hotly contested prodigy coming in, Oscar Piastri, otherwise known as Oscar Piastri, getting his debut season. Probably one of the more highly regarded rookies to come into F1 in quite some time. So I think if all goes to plan, I think McLaren will end up best of the rest this season. All right, this is it. This is it. The secondary granddaddy of them all. Our Constructors top 3 for the 2023 season. And here we are in reverse order. My Constructors top 3, finishing 3rd in the Constructors this season. Scuderia Ferrari. Ferrari, I think, is going to struggle this season. So I have them finishing 3rd in the Constructors this season, because they came out of the gates very hot last season and really just struggled down the stretch, and in 2nd place. And it's because, and they're going to end up in 3rd for me, because in 2nd place, Mercedes will finish P2 in the Constructors this season, because the way they finished last season, I think, shows more momentum going into 2023 than Ferrari did. If anything, Ferrari lost momentum over the course of the season, and Mercedes only gained momentum over the course of the season. There's a lot of feelings going on in Twitch chat about this one, and we'll wrap it up with 1st place. It's Red Bull. It's got to be Red Bull. I mean, I don't think anyone is going to argue about that. I think it's still going to be at least one more year in the sport before anyone will be able to match the development of Red Bull and really start challenging for the Constructors again. But there it is, from reverse order. Ferrari finishing 3rd in the Constructors, followed by Mercedes in 2nd, and winning the Constructors for the 2nd year in a row is Red Bull Racing, the granddaddy of them all. Drivers top 3 finish in 2023. My top 3 in reverse order. Finishing P3 in the Drivers' Championship. Finished in 2022 in P2 for the Drivers' Championship. I have one Charles Leclerc finishing P3 in the Drivers' Championship in 2023. Hold for applause. Thank you. In P2 of the 2023 Drivers' Championship, I have Sir Lewis Hamilton finishing P2 this season in the World Drivers' Championship. And winning the World Drivers' Championship for 2023 should be pretty straightforward. I have, and it does pain me to say this, one Max Verstappen back-to-back World Drivers' Championships. It pains me to say it, but I think Max and Red Bull are gonna have another good year. And listen, I'm not gonna be the first one to say I'm happy about it, but I think that's what's gonna happen. So I have Max winning, Lewis coming in second, and Charles Leclerc finishing in P3 in the drivers. And if I had to go down from there, I would probably say George finishes P4 and Checo rounds out the top 5. And then finally, I would be remiss personally, content wise, to not ask for and give my prediction for where the Haas F1 team finishes this season. I think with their add in the fact that I think this is the first season that they're actually going to be hit the budget cap thanks to their new sponsorship with MoneyGram. I think Haas F1 team is going to finish at minimum 7th in the Constructors, but my official prediction is that Haas will finish 6th in the Constructors this season, making a good jump after last season where they really struggled down the stretch. So with a full season of development and a full season where they're able to hopefully compete the whole season, I think Haas could finish and will finish 6th in the Constructors. All right, you guys, that wraps up our official 2023 Formula One predictions. What about you? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below what you think is going to happen this season in 2023. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we cannot wait for the season to get started. To see cars going around on track again is going to be a wonderful sight, and I personally cannot wait, and it cannot get here soon enough. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.